Boa tarde. Bom, dentro de instantes iniciaremos o nosso painel 11 dessa nossa primeira PreCop São Paulo 2021. Gostaria de renovar os agradecimentos a todos que nos acompanham virtualmente e de maneira presencial. Em alguns instantes iniciaremos. Obrigado. Bom, chamo à mesa o secretário Alexandre Modonese, secretário municipal de subprefeituras. Por favor, secretário. Na sequência, chamo à mesa Dr. Flávio doutora Tatiana Tucundurva.
Ana Tucundurva. Tatiana, sorry.
Malheiros.
Ronaldo Malheiros.
E, por fim, Michel Pantera.
Michel Pantera, to make the table.
Bom, então, esse painel 11,
This
infraestrutura
11th
urbana,
panel,
terá
urban
início
infrastructures.
com a apresentação do
We
secretário
start
Alexandre Modonese,
with
que falará
Alexandre
um pouco
Modonese,
a respeito
Secretary.
do jardim de chuva,
You
que ontem foi
talk
destacado
about
pelo nosso
rain
prefeito
gardens. Our
durante a abertura,
mayors
e na
mentioned the
sequência sobre
rain
monitoramento
gardens.
de piscinões
And
e túneis
also,
na cidade de
we'll
São Paulo.
talk about
Por
the
favor,
pools
a
in
palavra
the
é sua,
city of São
secretário.
Paulo,
Obrigado.
the piscinões, which are to trap the rain. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here, taking part and making this table together with all the others to tell the implementation of actions in the state of São Paulo based on regional solutions and a political action that is disruptive in the city based on the 2030 agenda. The city of São Paulo has a big challenge. We are with 12 million of inhabitants, and we can affirm that we are 2 times New York and 17,000 kilometers of ways, paved streets, and besides this complexity, we have 30% of rural area and 48% of vegetation covering. That we need innovation regarding that. The city per se mapped, and I show it in the end, and we have regional actions, punctual ones, which are improving the city in terms of heat, And it's a solution to trap rainwaters, and so it avoids flood in certain streets and improves the city and the circulation in the streets. So, how does it work? This Jardim de Chuva rain garden, we find a place that needs it. We break the pavement using the recycling, that material for recycling. We break the pavement, we use the concrete with base of the trap for the water, and we ground it and we plant seeds, vegetation in the area. One example of the actions that we are doing, actions that are punctual, change the surface of the locality, urbanically speaking, besides trapping waters and improving the drainage of the region. So we have over 150 gardens like that. We're delivering every month. We have 32 sub-city halls in the city of São Paulo, and we are going ahead with awareness of the persons in the city halls, the service renders, for the importance of this solution to be implemented in medium and long term. Another example, we show to the population the action. There are indications, signals. Another solution, you do an exchange. Instead of having a car, we have green area. So we have to combine that with the local population. So it's measurement for the street. So instead of having cars parked on the street, we have green areas. It's very interesting. So people know that they belong to the place. It's regional. And they change the face of the city. Another action are the forests, conservation forests, small ones. We identify areas that are not being correctly used, or where you have open dams, or you have debris, and you prepare a green area. There is access, for instance, to the main roads, here in this case to Radial Leste. This area, in the past, we had 15 lorries with debris. Nowadays, it's used to have birds, and we used the Atlantic forest seeds in the area. Besides that, it's also to trap water. It's a region to trap water that comes from higher avenues, so it is, let us say, a bigger rain garden. Here, on the pavements that are with inclination, this is in 23rd May, 23 de Maio Avenue. It was done during the flood, and we reduced the amount of water arriving down there in Vale do Angabaú, that's just beside us. So it's another action. It shows that it's possible to have the art and beautiful place. We presented here the arches that are historical in this part of the city, and we have, in this case, straw. So it changed the landscape we use capim do Texas. It's Texas grass. So here we have green ladders, green steps. So we use here small spaces, plant boxes, and this water that would be to Vale do Angabaú, we trap it here with these green stairs because we do the caption of part of the water. It's trapped there. Here we have another thing that's very important, the ditches, bio-ditches. We have 4 sources of water, and the plants, all the year, they have water. So in the past, we had only running water. Today, we have water that is feeding the plant. It's part of the urbanism of the city. The Texas grass, the ditches with water and plant, etc. So this garden, new gardens we implemented last year, and in this year it's considered a public policy via the City Hall. And the next years we'll repeat the action, intensifying and delivering to the city the plant beds with regional solutions which are simple, cheap, and change the landscape of São Paulo. So we've done a survey, fruit of a partnership that we have with the University of São Paulo, and we mapped all the draining in São Paulo. São Paulo did not have it in mapping, and we identified the areas where we had flood and the elements that I say, how many gutters, how many manholes, all the structures, hydraulically speaking. So in terms of quantity, the main substitute halls, so we changed all the planning concerning maintenance and cleaning and drainage in the city of São Paulo. It's a better action from the part of the City Hall. Here, the areas that the city has, for the first time the city of São Paulo has in 17,000 kilometers of streets, they are mapped with the elements that the city should consider priority in terms of cleaning and maintenance. It avoids flood, and we maximize the resources, public resources used. Pari passo, the city also invested in the improvement of the concessionaires that render services. This is a flow chart that presents the GeoInfra system. It's a complex process, and it was very difficult to control in the city of São Paulo. The city implements nowadays a system that is without red tape, and we are able to innovate in our management, and we can ask the companies to use recycled material, RCC, foam, having a process of circular economy, reducing the costs. And we got that via the control that the city has using this system.
O GeoInfra é uma plataforma digital que será utilizada pela Prefeitura de São Paulo para a gestão do espaço urbano, permitindo o acompanhamento online de todos os processos de autorizações de obras. Com o GeoInfra, a própria concessionária acessará o sistema com login e senhas individuais. Ao acessar o sistema, a concessionária poderá visualizar na tela inicial todos os seus processos e status de cada um deles. Criar um novo processo no GeoInfra é muito fácil. Basta clicar em Novo Processo, escolher o tipo de processo e de obra. E então, anexar seus documentos. A concessionária também informa o tempo da obra, projetista e responsável técnico, entre outras informações. Então é hora de identificar o local e, em seguida, traçar o projeto no próprio GeoInfra. Projeto cadastrado. Agora é hora de revisar. O GeoInfra calcula automaticamente o pagamento das guias necessárias, de acordo com as características das obras. Com o termo de responsabilidade, cada concessionária se compromete a seguir o projeto indicado. Com o projeto cadastrado, as guias estão disponíveis para download. Com as guias pagas, o alvará de obras do Convias é emitido e o termo de permissão de ocupação de vias também, após análise da Secretaria de Transportes via plataforma online, garantindo a validação do impacto no trânsito da cidade. Com isso, é feito o aviso do início de obras. Após a execução, basta colocar no sistema o aviso de término das obras, inserir o cadastro do projeto executado e o relatório fotográfico. Dessa forma, a Prefeitura garante a gestão das obras, beneficiando o cidadão de São Paulo com mais qualidade, segurança e eficiência.
Todas essas ações que a Secretaria de Prefeitura tem conduzido, ela visa consolidar políticas públicas sustentáveis, controlar as concessionárias, inovar na área de drenagem, a utilização de material reciclado e a utilização de tecnologia na medida certa, uma tecnologia que seja barata e funcional,
cheaper and functional, producing results that are practical in the city of São Paulo, a city that is dynamic, complex. We have simple solutions that are efficient, necessary to the city. Thank you very much for contributing.
Obrigado, secretário Montanelli, pela apresentação.
Aproveitar
para registrar
I take the opportunity to thank for the presence of Fábio Lepic, the Executive Secretary, and Ana Carolina Femina, also
muito obrigado.
Secretary of the Subsidy Halls. Now I'll pass the floor. And it's important, first of all, to tell about the partnership that we have in many actions. Dr. Flávio Maranhão, thank you for the presence. Now he takes the floor.
Foi pedido que eu trouxesse um pouco da experiência
asked me to present my experience
concerning
the public sectors and the preservation of our resources, environmental or not. So, via Secretary Moronese, we developed the monitoring system concerning the asphalt, and also we used AR and punctual things, and we optimized the process of new routes, closing certain streets. To have that map that has been shown here, we used not only the conventional models, but also other models. Let us say it was considered the last 8 years with the traditional models. They could not explain a city like São Paulo because it would not indicate all the floods. Only 32 points were there in the model that is considered traditional. Where are the other 78? So the traditional ones are focused on macro draining. So in fact, urbanly, it's micro draining. So it changed over the last times. So engineering progressed. It was necessary. There was no information. Now the engineering is based on evidences. We study new ways. We compare to what has happened, and based on that, we update the models, the traditional ones. We've done that concerning asphalt, draining. We develop concerning lighting of the city. So it's a convergence. It's academia and public power working together, besides other factors. For instance, we developed concerning methane the studies, because methane is known as a potential of heating, an impact higher than CO2. Okay, CO2 is easier to identify. In fact, as I don't know exactly the size, but I know it's, okay, you're saying 23, okay, the figure is 23. Okay, 23 times worse than CO2. Concentration of methane in the atmosphere is lower than 2 ppms. In São Paulo, for our surprise, we've done the sensors, we used and ran it with the same way we did with the asphalt, and we saw that the concentration was above 10 ppm. So it's worse near the creeks because there is concentration of organic material. So we have to expand in terms of sewage to know the region better and do it with everything, not only with the green areas, because then you know the heating of the city and you take care of the city in this sense. Use the technology. It's here to clarify and give us subsides to implement our public policies. This is the way. That's the tool. That's what I repeat. I do it according to our possessions, the way we can pay. So, because in fact, São Paulo is a big city in a poor country, it means that there won't be, the amount of precision won't be that high, but we carry on and take care and get more information and take decisions that are based on facts. So management nowadays, you have to have subside to take decisions, to establish the public affairs, and then you have to be very logic in your way of thinking. Developing technology, using matrix, developing researches to establish your public policies. We want the city without flood. We had the first run, the Secretariat has done it, and we keep our fingers crossed to make it happen accordingly.
All this is part of this, and this is only possible when you have management sufficiently good to see the mistake. So besides the aspects of the former mayor, the present mayor, there has to be maturity, initiative to have the time to perfect things and not just look and aim the cannon for the first mistake, because everybody will make mistakes. So this is what I wanted to put forward, that the academy is always open to integrate into the public policies and take the best decisions for the city. Thank you very much, Professor Maranhão, and commenting that we also have a representative from the academic world, Garcia, from the panel Sustainability. Teacher Garcia, doctor in São Paulo City. And I have the satisfaction to give the floor to Doutora Tatiana from Montese, just postgraduate in USP, in Masters for Intelligent Cities from Uninove University. Please take the floor. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I thank for the opportunity to discuss directly with our managers and our population. Here representing the academy, this is the ideal world. We would like to be able to have this connection with all parts involved at any time. Listening to the secretary, I actually would like to tell you about the power that the local governments have in the fight against the good climate, of damaged climate. This is what we feel the consequences due to the climatic situations. So even if it's fundamental and very important, everything that happens in the conferences, because we will have the next one, there they have the role, fundamental role, to take over the guidelines, sign the agreements. But every time we talk about climate issues, we have to see that the power is in our hands, because as you could see by the initiative pointed out right now, we have the condition to make researches and the will of the politics and being engaged with the civil society, we actually can make a difference. It's something very interesting to observe, the advantage and discussions we are doing now. It's not only the technology based on what we see, but to work together all the time, to have the public policy taking place. Because so we can follow up, monitor, evaluate, and then we will see the mistakes, learn the lessons, and go ahead. If we don't have this concern to evaluate and monitor the politics, it's no use. Because all of us know, because we act in the sustainability area, it's for a long time already. And we can see that we live in a country where we have laws for environment, very good one, very complete. The São Paulo city was always and still is pioneer in innovating and showing that you can make the difference with small initiatives. So lots of people that know about the subject and they say, look, this garden, it's not that only. Everything we can have to improve the quality of life and to live in a better place is extremely positive. Each mitigation action, adapting actions that the municipality does is for the society. So we have to empower ourselves more and more and use the public policies we have. We have a municipality policy for changes in climate. It was elaborated together with the academy, where I took part also. We had this partnership done when it was approved by unanimity. It was started. We were the first policy to change climate in the country. First was the city of São Paulo, and then for the state. And at the end of that year came the national politics, because we went to the program, and the union went after the municipality of São Paulo and said, come on, if the municipality has this since June and the state of São Paulo since September of 2009, then we have to present this at the COP, where we were also, and we represented São Paulo there, and to get there we saw that even being in a country with a lot of difficulties because we live in the social financing and cultural problems of a subdeveloped country, but we have a lot to teach and share with the rest of the planet, and this we can see exactly when we participate of these international meetings. When we get there, São Paulo took over a protagonism as a city that when we take part in this national net of C40, showed we had the initiatives to face the problems that are naturally known, and we took over issues as, for instance, I'm going to mention one, the capturing methane and sanitary problems and generating electricity in just one initiative. It decreased considerably, about 20% of the emissions at the municipality at that time. When that was presented, we generated credits of carbon credits. They were sold, and all this income was applied in a region as a whole, because that's what we discussed. I don't know if you already hold the expression only, it's more in my backyard, but in Portuguese it is not in my backyard. Everybody has to care to everything around where you live. And so this becomes a good practice to be shared, and the lights are all on São Paulo. So I congratulate the Secretary for this management, and we have had these changes that you have noticed, that on the first moment might be very irrelevant for those that don't know about the subject, but we that know the importance in itself to have environmental comfort. The difference in temperature we have in the areas which are or have vegetation different from other regions. The increase of green areas in the capital, decreasing the heat waves in some areas. And by the studies from the medicine college, the way of life and the increase of years that you can live in regions where there are more trees is better than the regions that don't have these green areas. The impacts and consequences are there being felt, and it shows in the academy the results in numbers. And the great advantage presently to work in way together, the connection among all the actors of the society in the moments that we make these policies, then we will see during the implementation and right after at the moments to evaluate what's being done, study the works, this is working, that's not working, this is making some difference, and then we have to think about other ways of acting, and then evaluate all that, do the improvements, continuous progressive improvements. While the municipality, we all have our responsibilities. So it's very good for us to see the management being organized in meetings of a COP, where in this COP they will define the guidelines, important guidelines, so that we can go forward, because we know that in the point of view of the parts, in the words said in Paris, nobody else discussed, we just accepted the new reality, that we are not going to have an increase of 1.5 of temperature, but officially 2 degrees of temperature, which increases a lot our responsibility and communicate with society so that we can discuss what has to be done. And this is a point in which I stop my first participation and for afterwards have the debate, saying that exactly what makes me happier to have the possibility to be here today is to be able to communicate, talk, exchange ideas with you all, and the demands, knowledge. Because if this doesn't happen, there's no use being within the university producing ideas if we don't share it with society. There are a lot of knowledge in the university. It's a world of knowledge. And I think this is very nice because I love having part of the education, which I believe actually that will make the difference for each seed we plant. It's a different conscience that we can achieve and bring to our sides, and we can make the difference. So there's no point in constructing all this knowledge and not arrive anywhere and not get to people that need to know. They need information. And many times this exchange is very positive because having this policy and evidence, scientific evidence is something else. The exchange of knowledge with the population, they have to be conscious and they have to be heard. And they just not be heard and collect that, but we have to have the conscience. And then we are not just passive people, we become responsible. And within this responsibility that all of us can share, in fact, take care of a lot of elements. And our focus today is infrastructure. We have to be together in this. So when we see the municipality doing these initiatives, what's our role? To check if everything is really being taken care of, if the maintenance happens, if the citizen helps in this process, if everybody is taking care collectively of what is our, because this feeling of belonging happens when I see that I have to take care of that space that's mine. It's not that when we get out of our house, it's public, and then the government has to do that. We know the city is ours, and we have to be conscious to take better care of it. So we count with your help so that this will help, and I thank you the opportunity very much to be here and exchanging these ideas and information with you. In this contact, just looking at each other, even with masks, it is very nice. Thank you for your attention.
Muito obrigado, doutora Tatiana.
Thank you very much, Dra. Tatiana, for your explanation and your talk. Very clarifying, and the local governments are growing, and the meaningful growth in the networks like C40, in the Play, which is another big partner. This morning we had the presence of Anna Menke, and she's responsible for these relationships of this important network for us. As we are on the subject, I'll give the floor to Secretary Modonese to talk about monitoring decisions in São Paulo. I will also take my mask off to make it easier. São Paulo City started about a year and a half ago a process of modernization and control of managing the big pools in the capital city. The city did not have this monitoring. This was decentralized, and each unit had to manage it by itself. And we went to an operational center and the monitoring the basins. The great concern is not to monitor a big swimming pool, but see that the hydrographic division has to be respected in the monitoring. So we started to control the big swimming pools through the basins. And with that, to understand how that basin works when it rains and which are the influences it has. This changes the operational action if we have flooded areas, and we know beforehand where our teams should go, which are the measures to be taken, and the city starts now a structure of operational plan for this period of rain, the rainy period. These summer rains in São Paulo will already be managed in a different way than they were in the years which passed. Another action will be the control of CO2 within the tunnels and also the automatization of all the ventilation system. Insumos, the size of São Paulo and the quantity of tunnels we have, it's more than indispensable to act. I think the city in management is trying to innovate the technology to make it simple. This is a great action. Not implement great technological solutions, but to implement to better this solution in average stage. We start today, we put pillars, and it will stay for the next decades. What we are doing presently, modernize and rationalize all these decisions. And the management of the big pools and the hybrid problem in the city has to be dealt with. We have a specialist in this area, Melad, and he's going to talk about it next. And it went through the complex part of the city, the east side, and it gives us an example of what is possible to do, which equipments the city has, and rationalizing this. Past rains, we had a region that was always flooded in the last decade, and we made a good management and finding out where you have to clean it, and this was solved. And these actions to rationalize and bring intelligence for our daily work that really acts on it. Thank you very much, Secretary Modenese. Now I'm happy to give the floor to Ronaldo Malheiros, who is a geologist, master in geology and geography.
Obrigado a todos.
I'm very proud to be here today in this event. I'm talking like a person that has been for 30 years in the City Hall and had the honor to be to 2011, where it was starting to be organized and trying to face the enemy, which we know well, which is the rain. But in 20 years, the city wasn't in the process it's presently, because it's grew a lot. And this happened respecting some aspects in the city. With deforestation and all these problems, the public management has to look at it in a different way for this process. And something that's important to understand, that the floods actually will always happen due to the conditions of growth of the city, and more the public policies, as I showed here, that the work with meteorological work, it's being prepared to face this. But now we are in a moment, and this event shows that São Paulo is doing this in different climate changes. And we see the changes are there, we cannot deny it, but the fact is that they happen in the city. And when you talk about climate changes, it's much far away of our reality. So we have to start doing a series of things. And something else we saw in this process is the adapting. The city has to adapt, and this big pool is an engineering work which was implanted in '89. Those that remember, the parking lot in Pacaembu is something done in the city, and the work of the piscinão, the big pool, is to give this back to the city, and when it works heavily, it's giving back to the city non-structurally all this process. Everybody knows the Aricanduva region, where the public power was constructing to diminish the impacts of this strong rain on the population. And everybody knows the Parque do Carmo, Carmo Park, and presently is preserved, and it would avoid all this flooding, without mentioning the importance of the park for the people that live around it. So it's an important engineering to make the city go ahead. And in this rain plan, which we're working on, we have to understand that the big pools are very important to retain this water. So what's the difference in this new project? We're implementing something that's called governance. And the public power has to do this governance because we have a big pool in a region called Pirajussara, Butantã, called Charque. It has a function, but if in fact it won't have their pumps, there won't be any energy, as if it won't exist. So to take care of these spaces and do this governance, show the concern of the public power to give this space to its function to mitigate the consequences. So presently, when this was implemented, we can inform that all the big pools are working, and the CGE that monitors the rain is very important. We have the condition to know if one pump had some defect, and this means it's going to maintain rapidly and will give back to the functioning of it, and check the level of these reservoirs. If there is a big rain in a basin and I see that that big pool is full, it means that there will be a problem of overflowing, and this needs in the rain plan to see this beforehand. And all this monitoring we have now, we did not have before. All these public policies for draining are working. So this is a great advantage of this process. So it is, in fact, an important measure of adapting. Without these big pools, São Paulo would be a chaos. For instance, we know that in a basin it rains a lot, and the big pools hold this water, so this shows the efficiency. But I understand, Secretary, that the public policies in this space to see this climate change, they show other alternatives to make other functions for the city. Like the rain garden, it has a very important part to avoid the infiltration, but it brings the landscape to the city, which gives it another look. So I believe this is important, and I say this as a person that has been working with rain for 20 years, and so we have to go ahead more and more to see the system, and the talk with the university is very important. That bring to the public management other elements, and it's important, this interface of the organs, of the departments for São Paulo to face these problems. And we have to face rain this way.
For instance, nowadays, if you show this vegetation area that was full of debris in the past. What do you see? Where would be the debris? In the manhole, in the pool, in the gutters, and it takes money to do the cleaning. So you have to consider the environmental issues in the city, mainly considering the context that we are living of climate change with extremes that for certain affect the city. So it has to be strong enough to be prepared for that. We have a lot to do in São Paulo in order to have it better and better and to face what we have ahead of us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ronaldo Maria. And now, to close this panel, which was twofold, it gave us a view of systems, structures, urban cities.
Eu passo a
I
palavra
pass the
ao
floor
Michel Pantera,
to Michel Pantera, meteorologist of the Climatic Changes Center in São Paulo. He is a geophysician of the University of São Paulo. He is an expert in climate change and
Bom, boa tarde, pessoal. Tudo bem?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Já foi dito, né? Eu
As it's
sou
been said,
bacharel em meteorologia, trabalho
I
na
am a
área desde
bachelor
1997, né?
meteorology,
E o foco
and I work in
principalmente
the area
nessa
since
questão de defesa
97.
civil.
The focus
Inclusive,
on the
passei 10 anos, né,
defense
na
of the city,
coordenador estadual de defesa
coordinating
civil,
the
trabalhando no
civil
estado.
aspect of it,
Desde
working for the state,
2008,
rendering
né,
services
faço
to the
parte,
state,
componho
and
a
since
equipe do
2008,
CGE, né?
I'm part of CGE, which
vou
is
tentar
an
fazer
office
breve,
in the state. I'll briefly
da
try
experiência, né,
to
do CGE e de como
present
chegamos
my
até aqui.
experience in
Então, a gente
CGE.
imagina que antes da cidade de São Paulo
Before
ter sido
São
construída
Paulo
aqui,
being
o Planalto
built
Paulista, né,
in
toda essa região é uma
this
região de
region,
nascentes de rios, né?
we had
Então, todo o ABC,
the birth
toda a
of many
capital
rivers.
eram nascentes de
It
rios,
was
e todos esses rios
a
corriam, né,
region
para o
with
Tietê e Pinheiros, que
rivers,
eram rios de meandros,
with
rios de
rivers
cheias. Então, toda vez
running
que chovia
to
muito forte,
Tietê
a gente
River.
tinha uma cheia como se fosse mini
So
Pantanal
the
até,
flood
podemos
was
dizer,
like in a Pantanal
Então, é claro que a
area.
característica
Of course,
dessa
the
região
characteristic
sempre
of
foi
this
ter chuvas
region
intensas
is having
durante o
intense
verão.
floods
E a gente não pode ser
during
ingênuo de
summer.
achar que
You're
uma
not
chuva,
ingenuous
por
enough
exemplo, um evento
to
extremo,
consider
né,
that
200 milímetros
if we have
em uma
200
hora, uma hora
millimeters
e
in 1
meia,
hour, 1 hour and a half,
em qualquer lugar do
in any
mundo,
place
qualquer
of the
cidade vai
world,
ter
in
problema
any
com uma
city,
chuva desse porte.
it's a problem
São 200 litros,
because you
né,
have
por
200
metro
liters
quadrado em
per
uma
square
hora.
meter in 1
Se
hour.
cair esse volume de chuva
If
no
the
deserto do
volume
Saara,
in
vai
the
ter
desert
enchente,
of
vai ter
Sahara, you have flood there,
corredeiras, né? Vai
and
ter
you have running water.
esse problema até no deserto do Saara, com certeza.
Even in the desert, you have this problem.
A partir daí a cidade foi crescendo.
So
E
the
claro,
city
como
grew
não é
and expanded.
absurdo falar que as
It's
enchentes
not
já
an
estavam
absurd
aqui
to
antes da
say
cidade.
that
Né?
flood
Então, a cidade
was
foi
here
crescendo e teve
before
que
the city
se
itself.
acostumando, né? A conviver
So we have
com essa
to
questão
live
dos
with
alagamentos.
it.
A gente tem fotos
Flood
históricas desde
is
da
part
década
of
de
our
50
history
que já
since the
mostram,
50s.
né, alagamentos na
shows
cidade.
how the city
Inclusive,
is.
o túnel do Anhangabaú já cheio d'água em
And
1958.
Anhangabaú, where we are, full of water.
Então, tudo isso culminou, né? A
Flood.
cidade foi crescendo,
So the
foi
city
convivendo
expanded,
com as enchentes,
and we live
até
with
que
it.
tivemos um evento dramático,
But
né,
there was a very
em
dramatic
99,
event
e
in
o trânsito estava
19,
todo parado no centro da cidade,
we had the
né,
center of the city
praticamente não tinha
all
como os carros
stopped,
andarem
stuck.
ali.
The
Veio
cars
um
could
grande
not
temporal, atingiu em cheio o
ride.
centro da cidade,
And in the center of the
toda a
city,
enxurrada
we
para
had
dentro do túnel do
all
Anhangabaú,
that
com todos os
flood
carros parados lá
going
dentro. Então,
and
foi um
entering the
evento
tunnel of
dramático, as
Anhangabaú.
pessoas
It was
tiveram
very
que sair por
dramatic.
cima dos carros.
The people were
E por
desperate,
muita sorte,
leaving the
não
car,
ocorreu
using
nenhum
the
óbito.
window
Bom,
of the car
a
to
partir daí, a
leave.
Prefeitura de São Paulo resolveu
And
que
from
tinha que dar
then
passo à frente.
onwards,
Né?
the mayor,
Resolveu que aquilo
the
não
city
deveria
hall
ocorrer mais.
decided
Então,
that we should
juntaram-se
simply
especialistas
stop with
brasileiros
it.
e internacionais
We had
para que aquilo
Brazilian
não
and the
ocorresse
international
novamente.
experts to
Resolveu-se,
avoid
então,
the
desse
thing
estudo,
to
né,
happen again, the
decidiu
disaster
criar
to
o
happen again, let us
Centro de
say.
Emergência da capital.
It was
Então,
an
a partir aí
emergency
do
in
ano
the
2000,
capital.
vamos dizer, desse
So
século,
let
né,
us say, in this
o CGE
century,
começou a atuar.
CGE
Na
started
verdade,
working.
o CGE é como se fosse
focusing
braço tecnológico aí da prefeitura.
technology
Então,
aspects.
tudo que é informação
So everything that
de
we have in
tempo,
terms of
clima,
information
dados de
concerning
chuva, o
wind,
CGE fornece para os diversos
rain,
órgãos da prefeitura.
this information is passed
Então, ele atua em
to
conjunto
several
com as
divisions
subprefeituras,
of the
com a
City
Defesa
Hall.
Civil, com o
So, and we
bombeiro,
work
né?
with the
E com
sub-city
todos os
halls,
órgãos, né?
with the
Inclusive
fire
o pessoal,
department, with the police,
da
etc.
assistência social, né?
Social
Fornecendo as
assistance,
informações
supplying
para esse pessoal,
information,
inclusive a CT, né?
including
Então, o que
for
acontece?
the
Acho que o grande
people
trunfo
that
aí
control the
de todo esse
transit, the
sistema é
traffic.
uma mega
So,
estrutura, né, que
it's a
hoje a
mega
cidade de São Paulo
structure,
tem, que cresceu ao longo de todos esses 20
and it's
anos,
been growing and
é um
growing.
sistema descentralizado,
It's
ou seja,
decentralized
tem
system,
várias
has
subprefeituras,
several
temos vários grupamentos de corpo
sub-city
de bombeiro,
halls
Águia,
and
a
other
CET,
departments,
mas que consegue atuar de
and
forma
we are
coordenada,
able to
né, a partir
coordinate
aí
everything
do Centro de Controle Integrado
based
da
on an
Defesa Civil,
integrated
da
control
Secretaria das
center
Subprefeituras,
using the
usando,
secretariat
claro,
of
né,
the
as
sub-city
informações do
halls
CGE
and the
tocante
information
aí
of CGE,
aos eventos extremos
going
que venham a
ahead
ocorrer
to
na capital
avoid
paulista.
extreme
Então,
events.
isso, hoje, né,
Nowadays,
20 anos depois da
20
criação
years
do
after
CGE, e depois de
the
todo o
CGE
investimento,
started
né, nessa mega
investing in this
estrutura que a
mega
Prefeitura de São Paulo
structure,
fez, a gente pode
we
dizer
are
que
able
São
to say
Paulo é
that
uma
São
das
Paulo is
capitais
one of the
melhor
capitals of the
preparada
world that are
para
better
enfrentar
prepared
esses
to face
eventos,
these
né, de
events
chuvas intensas,
of
se não for a mais
intense
preparada do
rain,
mundo.
if
A
not
gente vê
the
que quando a gente tem um
best
evento
prepared
extremo
all over
desse
the
de 200
world.
milímetros,
If you consider
150
200
milímetros em outros
millimeters
locais do mundo,
in other places of the
a
world,
situação
the
fica
situation
bem
is worse,
consideravelmente ruim, não é?
is
E
bad.
além disso, além de toda essa estrutura, São Paulo também
This
tem a questão
structure points out
do
that
pessoal da
São
limpeza.
Paulo
Então,
is
logo
having the
após um
support
evento
of
como
people that
esse,
do the
né, a
cleaning.
chuva para,
After the rain,
2 horas depois,
1 or 2 hours after
o pessoal
that,
já limpou, a CT já
people
começa a
that
liberar o
work with
trânsito
cleaning
e se restaura a
have
normalidade.
already worked
Então,
on
além de
it,
uma
and
resposta
normality
relativamente
comes
rápida,
back.
né, para
So it's a
mitigar
quick
essa
response
questão de
to
toda essa chuva,
mitigate
a
the
gente ainda
question
tem
of
retorno
excessive
rápido,
rain,
relativamente rápido na
and
medida do
the
possível,
cleaning
claro,
is
à
also
normalidade.
fast, back
Tá?
to normality.
Então, o CGE acaba
So
trabalhando
CGE
nesse ponto e
works
também
in this
no
point as well,
fornecimento de dados. Não é?
focusing on
Então,
data.
a gente hoje tem um
Nowadays
grande
we
banco de dados
have
que, inclusive,
a
serve para
big
balizar
database that is
as
used
intervenções
to show the
estruturais. Né?
interventions, the structural
A
interventions.
Secretaria de Infraestrutura Urbana e Obras utiliza
So
esses dados do
the
CGE para
Secretariat of
dimensionar,
Works
não é,
use it,
as obras. Não é?
Urban Works,
E dentro de tudo isso,
and
né,
with
a
all
gente
that,
vem observando,
we observe
claro, com os dados do CGE,
that
do
with the
vmix,
data
que
that
tem,
we
né, uma
have,
série histórica maior, que ao
what
longo
we
do tempo que a
conclude is
cidade
that
foi
along the
crescendo,
time,
a gente teve, sim, um aumento, uma
we had an
elevação nas
increase
temperaturas,
of
tá?
Uma
Uma drástica diminuição na
drastic
umidade relativa
diminishing
do ar.
of the relative
Só que
humidity
as
of the
chuvas
air,
não
but the
apresentam
rains do
uma
not
tendência
present
muito clara.
a
Né?
trend
Ela
that's
tem uma
very
grande
clear,
variabilidade climática, alguns
because
anos
we
chove
have
mais,
variety in
outros
terms of
chove
climate.
menos. Isso depende de vários
It
fatores,
depends on
El
several
Niño,
factors,
Laninha, a temperatura do Oceano Atlântico
temperatures
aqui, né?
of the
Mas o
ocean,
que a gente
etc.
tira disso?
But
Não é?
what's the conclusion?
Nós estamos
We are
intensificando os extremos.
intensifying
Tá?
the
Então a gente tem
extremes.
o que hoje? Nós
What do we
temos
have?
mais calor,
It's hotter,
menos umidade,
warmer,
não é?
less
menos
humid,
garoa, mais temporais,
less light
e mais
rain,
poluição.
and more pollution.
Então São Paulo aos
São
poucos
Paulo,
deixou de ser
little
a terra
by
da
little,
garoa,
is not the
não é? E hoje é a terra do
land
temporal no
of
verão
small
e
spring
da
rain.
da seca no
So
inverno. A gente tem períodos
We
mais
have
prolongados de
periods that are
estiagem que antes
longer
não
in
havia.
terms of dry
Claro, a
season
gente fala aqui, eu fazendo um link agora com
doing link
a
now
mudança climática,
with
né?
climate
A
change.
gente sempre imagina
We
que a
would
mudança
say
climática global,
that globally
mas a gente tem um
speaking,
fator local que foi muito forte aqui em
it's
São
more or
Paulo,
less the same.
né?
No,
Com a
there is
supressão
a
da mata,
local factor
e ele até mascara um
and,
pouco, a gente não
it
percebe tanto o efeito
disguises the
da mudança
effect
climática global aqui
in
em São
terms
Paulo
of
quando a gente olha os dados,
global
porque, na
change.
verdade, a mudança local foi
The
muito
local
intensa,
change
não é?
is intense and
E
was
dentro de tudo isso,
intense.
a permeabilização da
And
cidade
so
vários
doing the
estudos mostram, por
impermeabilization
exemplo,
of
uma
the
área
city.
vegetada,
If
as
you
árvores,
have
elas
an area
acabam
with
bombeando de
vegetation,
volta para a
it
atmosfera
pumps back
cerca
to
de
the
60 a
atmosphere
70% do que cai
60%
em forma de
of
chuva.
what
Ou seja,
comes
além de
in
ajudar,
the form
né,
of
com as
rain.
raízes na
So
permeabilidade do
the
solo, né, a
drizzle that
infiltração
was
da
the
água,
characteristic
ela
of
ainda
São
pega
Paulo
praticamente
does
60,
not exist
70% do
anymore,
que cai
not with the same
e põe de
intensity.
volta na atmosfera
So
na forma de evapotranspiração.
we have
Então a gente
vapor
vê que é muito
transpiration
importante essa
nowadays.
questão
So it's
dos jardins de
important
chuva, dos parques
having
lineares que
the
estão sendo
rain
feitos
gardens,
também,
the linear
projeto, né, ao longo
parks,
dos rios Pinheiros e
along
Tietê,
the
todos os
rivers, Rio
parques, as áreas
Pinheiros,
vegetadas que estão sendo
and the
recuperadas na
vegetation
cidade de São
area
Paulo,
that is
à
being
disposição do Rio
regained in São
Pinheiros,
Paulo.
né? E ontem também
In
o
Rio
pessoal da Sabesp aqui
Pinheiros.
mostrou
Yesterday, Sabesp people
no,
pointed out
das áreas de mananciais da cidade,
the
não é? Que eles estão
water
também
source
tentando
areas
recuperar,
that they are trying to
deixar as
regain
beiras das represas
near
com
the
área de várzea,
dams,
né,
having
e
a larger
manancial.
area.
Tudo isso é muito importante. Por quê? Porque
So
todas
this is very
essas
important because all these actions,
é uma tarefa faraônica, sim, é uma
okay,
tarefa faraônica,
difficult
replantar
tasks,
grande parte
yes,
da vegetação.
pharaonic,
Mas tudo
but
isso vai cada
all
vez mais
that
ajudar a minimizar,
helps
a mitigar
to minimize
os
and
efeitos, né,
mitigate
desses
the
grandes temporais
effects
aqui em São Paulo.
of big
Então, tudo
floods
isso
or
é
big
a
storms,
experiência,
I would
não é,
say,
de
in
São
São
Paulo,
Paulo.
não só
So
no
not
sentido
only
da prefeitura, dessa mega
concerning the
estrutura
city
que eu citei,
hall
não é?
and its
Mas a
mega
própria população de
structures,
São
the
Paulo, ao
population
longo
of São
de todos
Paulo
esses anos,
along these years
acostumou a conviver com as
is
chuvas.
used to
Acabou sendo como se fosse um treinamento,
storms.
não é?
It's
Como
a
você tem no
training,
Japão,
let us say.
tem o treinamento para terremoto, eles fazem sempre,
For
não é?
earthquake in some
Aqui,
countries,
todo
here
verão
we
a
have
gente
the
tem eventos
training for
de chuva, né?
storms,
Eventos extremos, e o pessoal
extreme
começou a acostumar com isso. Tanto que
things
no
that we got
começo,
used to.
por exemplo, a
In the
CT
beginning,
punha a barreira no lugar
the
alagado
transit,
para o
the
pessoal não entrar
traffic
com o
was
carro lá, eles
controlled,
aceleravam e furavam a
and
barreira, tá certo?
with
Hoje
blocks.
não, hoje eles olham lá, olha,
Nowadays,
está
people
fechado,
respect the
realmente,
blocks. In
não
the
vou
past,
ali
they
porque
used
ali
simply
eu não vou
to
conseguir passar.
bump the blocks.
Então, tudo isso nos
So
trouxe
all
aonde a
that
gente está
has
hoje.
shown us
E
acknowledgement,
fico muito feliz
awareness.
até
I'm very happy to
de
point
todas
that out.
as palestras que a gente,
Every talk we
apresentações que a gente
have
viu
here,
aqui, não é?
you
E a gente
listen
está
to,
dando um passo à frente, não é agora? São Paulo
they
está
show
dando mais
that
um
you're
passo
having a
adiante.
step ahead.
Com essas novas iniciativas,
With these
não é?
initiatives,
Com
new
o
initiatives,
Seclima,
with
então tudo isso
Seclima,
vai favorecer, pelo menos a
everything
gente
is
mitigar e
favorable.
tentar
We
até
mitigate
melhorar essa
and try
questão,
to
voltar um pouco atrás, não é? Essa
the
questão da
situation.
impermeabilização, trazer um solo mais permeável e
having a
melhorar
more
a qualidade de
permeable
vida
soil,
e,
improving
né,
life
com relação a essa
quality
questão das
in
enchentes e
terms
dos
of
eventos extremos
floods
aqui em São
and
Paulo.
extreme events in São
Obrigado.
Paulo. Thank you.
Obrigado a todos. Obrigado,
you,
secretário Modonese. Obrigado, Flávio.
Thank you,
Doutora
Flávio, Donese,
Tatiana. Obrigado,
doutora Tatiana,
Ronaldo. Mais uma vez, Michel. A
and
todos
Michel,
pelas contribuições,
for the
pelos
contributions.
insights. Uma mesa muito interessante, falas muito coerentes. Então, está encerrado essa dobradinha
closing
e
this
agora
section now,
terá início o painel 13, que
and we'll
tratará
start
de
13th panel,
gestão de resíduos.
talking about waste
Passo, então, ao meu
management.
colega Ivanilton aqui
Ivanilton
a
will take the
palavra
floor now.
e a condução desse trabalho. Muito obrigado.
Só um minutinho, pessoal, e a gente já retoma.
We'll come back in a few seconds.
Vamos lá? Dando continuidade agora ao painel que trata de resíduos, gestão de resíduos. Eu convido, portanto, para vir para a mesa.
Let's make the table.
O gerente de planejamento, normas e regulamento e responsável pelo programa socioambiental da coleta seletiva de São Paulo,
Social Environmental em São Paulo, Túlio Barroso. Social Environmental Program in the state of São Paulo.
Também convido a gerente sênior de relações institucionais e governamentais da Unilever,
Unilever, Juliana Marra, of Unilever.
E convidamos agora
And we invite
o mestre em Direito Ambiental,
Masters
especialista
in
em Direito
Environmental
Gestão Ambiental,
Law
Segurança Alimentar e Nutricional,
and Security,
atualmente coordenador executivo
coordinators of the Committee of Integration of the Secretariat of Infrastructure and Environment in the State of São Paulo, Mr. José Valverde.
Nesta mesa também teríamos a
also
presença
would
do
have here
diretor-presidente
with
da
us
Abrelp, Dr. Carlos Silva Filho,
President
que está
of
em voo
Abrelp,
atrasado, não poderá
Carlos Filho, that
comparecer.
is a
Portanto,
bit
está a palavra com o
late.
senhor Túlio Barroso.
So we start with Mr. Túlio Barroso.
Boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Queria parabenizar a Secretaria de Relações Internacionais,
Congratulations
o especial Carlos
for
Fernandes pelo evento.
this
Muito
event.
bacana, a gente
Very good.
fazer uma pré-copa é bem
It's
interessante.
PreCop,
que começa a
very
integrar todos
interesting,
sobre o
because you
tema, conhecer mais as
prepared
metas da cidade.
for the theme,
Isso foi muito legal
knowing
e
the
tá
city
sendo um
in a
sucesso.
better way.
Parabéns.
Very cool.
Agora a gente vai falar um
Now
pouco de
we talk a
resíduos.
little
O tema de
bit
resíduo,
bit
apesar
about
dele no inventário de
waste.
emissões ele ser o terceiro,
Of course, it's the
ele
third
não é tão relevante nos
in
emissões,
terms
mas
of
ele
comparison
tem uma
to the
característica muito legal que todo mundo
emissions,
conhece.
but everybody
dentro da
knows it
casa,
very
ele tem
well.
uma
It's in the
uma
house,
perspectiva muito significativa
It's very
nas
significant
pessoas e na
in the
população.
life of people.
Eu vou apresentar um pouco
I'll
do
present
geral
a
da
bit
cidade e das
of the
metas que a gente
city
tem
in
de
general and the
emissões
targets we have
relacionadas a
concerning
resíduos.
emission related to
Pode colocar a
waste.
apresentação. Pode passar. Queria falar um pouco de ANLURB. O que é
Talking
ANLURB?
about
ANLURB é a Autoridade
ANLURB.
Municipal de Limpeza Urbana.
It's
A
the
ANLURB é
City
uma autoridade da cidade
Hall
de São Paulo
Authority for
que cuida da
cleaning,
limpeza urbana da cidade. Coleta
urban
de
cleaning,
resíduos, limpeza
collection
de
of
monumentos,
waste,
das ruas,
cleaning the
da varrição.
monuments, the
Essa que é a
streets,
ANLURB.
sweeping.
A ANLURB ela
That's
tem
ANLURB.
o PGIRS como
ANLURB as the PRGs,
o seu plano diretor,
as
é ele
its
que dá a
master
direção da
giving the
cidade, é ele
guideline
que tem as metas, é o plano de
and
gerenciamento
showing
integrado
the
dos resíduos
objectives in
sólidos.
the city.
Apesar das metas do PGIRS, a
Despite
ANLURB ela
the
introduz as
guidelines, we
políticas
have
públicas. Então, ela é
other
uma editora de
policies,
políticas
public
públicas
policies
na cidade de São Paulo.
in the city
E
of
sempre
São Paulo.
pensando na melhor qualidade ambiental
And we
do
look
município.
for the best
passar.
quality in terms of environment
pouco do
for the
panorama geral de
city.
resíduos,
A little bit of the
são
landscape
números
concerning
astronômicos.
waste,
Então,
astronomic
a
figures.
a
The
prefeitura ela
city-
coleta aproximadamente
The
18
city
mil
hall
toneladas
collects
de resíduo
approx
por dia.
80,000 tons of
Aproximadamente
debris
65%, 12 mil
per day.
toneladas, são de domiciliar,
12,000
residencial,
of
resíduo
it
da população.
residences
Pode passar.
and the rest
Para ter uma
of the
ideia,
population.
é equivalente a 18
So
piscinas
it
olímpicas
is
cheias
like
de lixo todo
12
dia que é coletado na cidade
Olympic
de São Paulo.
pools
18 mil
full
veículos
of debris,
populares, é a
full
mesma
of
dimensão
waste.
da
It's
quantidade
like
de resíduo.
thousands of vehicles
O
that have
PGIRS,
to be
como eu
used.
falei, o PGIRS é o
Loss
nosso guia norteador. É por
Well,
ele que a gente
is our,
que as metas
the
da
loss
cidade,
is
de
what
resíduo, de
guides us
tratamento,
to see
de
the
gestão de
treatment
resíduo,
and management
espelha.
of
Então o PGIRS,
waste.
ele é bem,
The PRGIRS
ele vai
is
bem com
it works
a
well
pirâmide invertida, que
with
é
that
primeiro caso,
inversion, which is
prevenção,
the first
não
case,
geração de resíduo.
prevention,
Então,
not
qual que é o
generating
nosso
waste.
mundo ideal? Não
So
gerar.
our ideal
Quanto menos
world
gerar,
is
melhor.
not generated. The
Segundo
less
passo,
you generate, better.
reutilização. Se você não
Second
consegue
step,
gerar, então você
reutilization,
foca em
reuse.
reutilizar.
Then
Eu comprei uma garrafa,
yeah, you
então, em vez
focus
de eu
on
comprar outra, eu
reusing.
vou
I
reutilizar
bought
ela com
a
água, alguma
bottle,
coisa,
I'll use it, I
artesanato,
reuse it
alguma outra
for
ideia. Se você não
handwork,
conseguiu reutilizar, ao menos você
handcraft,
recicla, então. É a
or recycle it. Recycling is the third step. If you couldn't reuse, then recycle. Next step is recovering energy, methane, compostage. You couldn't recycle, then instead of sending it to be buried, then you send it somewhere to produce energy. And the last step is to the big dump. If you weren't able to do anything like this, recuperate, recycle, then you send it to the dump adequately, so it won't contaminate the environment. The goals of PanClima is to use these ones in PEJURs. We use PEJURs as goals foreseen because the goals are complete, are actual. Even though we are ambitious in some factors, they are goals that were fixed previously. So if there's the recycling, compostage, and next slide. The actions of recycling is very directed for collective gathering. Either by PEV, this container where you can hand it out voluntarily, or door by door the truck comes and collects it. The idea is to increase the quantity of selections, increase the program, social collective waste collection, increase the capacity, and recycle paper and plastics. There are very many actions in reference to this. Second step is the compostage. Maximize it. We have a project in São Paulo. It's a program called PERAS, Fairs and Sustainable Gardens. We have compostage in the city, Lapa, Sé, Moca, and Matarazzo and São Mateus. These parts of the city, they receive fruits and vegetables from the markets. There's a graph that shows the evolution of quantity it was received. The last year, we were able to get more than 10,000 tons of organics and generated more than 2,000 tons of compost. And these are the actions from the population. If you don't know, you can go to one of these patios and check this. You can get bags, plastic bags for 100 liters to do this compostage. And we use it also for some actions of the mayors, of the green to plant, and you can use resources from the city to plant things. So these three compositions are a very good program. It's a compostage decentralized in various places. Our goal is that we have 10% of the markets, and we want to come to 50%, increasing the patios and the quantity of production of each place. The most impacted area, the stronger, is to plan eco-parks. What's an eco-park? They're big units that gather waste, so you can treat it mechanically or ideologically. So it would be dumped, and there goes through technologies, what Europe does, things of the first world. And Brazil has to start doing it, especially the city of São Paulo. So you have 3 pictures of other units, big units, and there you will have mechanical segregation of recycling, goes through a machine. Instead of being dumped, everything that can be recycled, plastic, they will taken away from there and be recycled. After that, there's the organic that can be used for biometallization of organic, with tunnels that you can take the methanic from the organic, produce energy, or even can be used in the fleet that collects the residues and waste. And the material that's not good, it can be sold or used for dump landfill. In the eco park, is stabilized. It doesn't generate anything. You have a stabilized organic. And what was left over and you cannot recycle or methanize or compostate, we use it to produce energy in great energetic stations. The eco parks are to do this composting from the houses into landfills. It has no treatment. To implement eco parks is the idea to have a pre-treatment. 10% that gets into eco park goes to the landfill, only 80%. So only 20% is rejected. When you talk about eco park, but we don't have it in São Paulo yet, but we have the project. It was made together with Isabel and CTAC, a viability study for technical economic study close to Santo Amaro. This is a study which is ready in conceptual, and we are evaluating it. It's 920 billion reais for this project. It generates energy equal to 60% of São Paulo's illumination. So one eco park, it will receive more or less 3,000 tons of waste, equates to 30 or 40% of the material of houses, comes from houses. Only for one eco park, the mitigation of the greenhouse gases, 250,000 tons a year. Less in the atmosphere. So besides the gain of the material, you also have logistic gain. Instead of the truck going from Santo Amaro to the east side of the city, it can be done right there. It's a park of 350,000 square meters next to the Santo Amaro station of transport, and it has its environmental state. The urbanly, they will have to know what's happening, not just put the waste out and see, I closed the door and the waste went away. No, you have to know where it goes, what you have to do with it, and what's good for, and the population will be absolutely integrated in this project. Here we have just one more explanation of the place. There's side of Miguel Yunes, an old landfill near Interlagos. In this project, we will have a thermic treatment and environmental treatment, methanization by composting, small greenhouse, and you have a cyclo path, and it will increase 25 kilometers because instead of taking it away, it's going to go through the plant. It will go next to the machinery. It's a closed tunnel by glass, and you can cycle through it and see what's happening. And this increases the cycle lane. So This idea for São Paulo is not just to have one eco park in São Paulo. This is the first one. But the plan of climate plan, we will have at least 4 eco parks. We want to have zero waste thrown into a landfill without being treated. So all waste will be composting, recycled, only goes to the landfill. It has no other way to be recovered. It went through machinery. That's what happens in the world and what São Paulo is trying to do presently. All these actions, we always think of stability. So we have to think about the economic and social and the environmental profile. I say that the city is going through a unique moment. You have the part of waste. If you see the laws in all the situations that we are going through, I say that the stars are getting aligned to make a very nice change in São Paulo. The city is going through a revision of PGs to integrate solid residues, solid waste. We are in the revising stage. We have future goals. And the city is going through administrative reformulation. So the old laws that stop some things, they have to be changed. We have a new stage, environmental stage in the city, the system of management of waste. We cannot continue taking money from the treasury, from health, to treat the waste. So the idea is to implement, because that they generate more, so we have taxes that generate more, they have to treat more. They'll have to pay for that. Who recycles more pays less. And the mayor is aligned in this mechanism, did an event illustrating what the population has to do. And besides all this, and revision, in transition, and the regulatory mark, we have all the conception that does the collection and destination of the waste. They have a contract of 20 years that starts in 24. So as from next year, they will start the discussions if the contract will be renewed or cancelled. Independently of the two, there will be discussions for the new goals of the contract. So you have all the factors together. The city just has to put it in practice. Move São Paulo from the beginning, initial, and to a level of the European cities in reference to waste management. It's a unique opportunity we have in São Paulo. I'm sure we're going to take good chance to understand it and have success. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Túlio Barroso. Now we'll give the floor to Juliana Marques. Juliana Mara.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon.
Tá, não? Tá? Acho que tá, né? Tem que falar um pouquinho mais perto. Eu tenho uma apresentação, se puderem.
My presentation, if you could
show it, please. Então, eu trabalho na Unilever.
I work at Unilever.
Trabalho já há bastante tempo lá.
For a long time already.
E venho aqui hoje para contribuir pouquinho.
I want to contribute in a way for these residues issues and tell you what is Unilever. It's a multinational company that has some factories in Brazil. We are, for 92 years in Brazil, we are very Brazilian. And we have are present in many homes in Brazil. Our portfolio is for cleaning, food, and everything that people use. Our brands are always present in all homes. We talk a little bit about waste sustainability as a whole. We launched some years ago, 2010, a global sustainability plan that at the time it was very innovating and was associated to the growth of the company with the environmental impact. So it's something quite new, saying that the company would continue growing, the size, more sales, profitability, and so on, but reducing the impact. So it's very, I put a lot of emphasis in this, and practically all our areas implemented these, which were related to these waste. They There's a problem? No. With the slides. I will continue talking even though. It's 2020, we launched updating of these. And because it's a global company, we need to have goals to be able to deliver. We say that our vision we want to be leader in something and show as a model of business guided by propositions and point for the future to better the development in the superior part of our industry. So brands with people with proposals. In these commitments, when we talk about the pillar that was shown now, it goes much ahead than talking about ESG, the governance and political and social. It has three big pillars. One, to improve the planet's health. So it's linked to all the environmental goals about waste. Another one is to improve the health, confidence, and welfare of people, because most of our brands talks about health, self-esteem. Some women perhaps will remember the campaign of Real Beauty. This brand doesn't use models, it uses actual women with their natural hair, as we all have here. That's why it has this pillar. And the other one that talks about more social issues to contribute to a more just and inclusive world. We'll talk more about the planet, and within the improving health in the planet, this has a beautiful name to become didactic. It's for the consumer to understand better our objective. It's three big fronts. I will show you on the slide when it comes up. One talks about climate action to improve the emissions until 2039 and zero emission until 2030. It's not very simple, and I'm going to talk now about waste, which is our panel. We have here some goals which are to diminish 50% plastic usage, coming to absolute 100,000 tons, 25% of plastic recycled of our packaging until 2025. This is an important goal, to use more plastic than what we put into the market. Everybody asks
Não tem
why,
resposta para tudo
but
ainda,
we don't have
né?
an answer to
Inclusive porque
everything.
não é só
Also,
Brasil, é
because
mundo,
it's not only
mas a nossa
Brazil, it's
ambição de
the
fato
world,
chegar
but our
e conseguir
ambition
coletar
is
mais
to
plástico
be
do que a
able
gente
to
coloca. Uma das maneiras é
collect
inclusive
more
reduzir
plastic than what
bastante
we
aquilo que a gente
generate.
coloca na rua. Estou falando especificamente das nossas
I'm
embalagens.
talking specifically about
100%
our
de plástico
packaging.
reciclável,
100% of
ou
recycling
compostável até
plastic or
2025,
compostating
reduzir a
and
metade
reduce
o
to
desperdício do
half
alimento em nossa
the
operação
waste
até
of
2025
food
e
until
manter, isso a gente já tem,
2025
o aterro
and
zero nas nossas
maintain
operações.
the
Então, a gente
zero
tem solução
dumping in
para
our
evitar
operations.
enviar para os
And
aterros. No outro slide, a
in
gente
the other
fala um pouco
slide,
mais sobre a questão da
we
estratégia,
speak
então,
more about
focada em
strategy
plástico.
focused
E por
on
que que a gente
plastics
foca
and
muito
why
em
we
plástico?
focus so much on
Boa parte do
plastic.
nosso
Great
portfólio
part of our
de,
portfolio
de itens são
of
produtos que estão no
items are
banheiro
produced,
ou nas
I think,
lavanderias, né? Ou na geladeira,
products
por
which
exemplo.
are either
Em
in
geral,
the
as
bathroom
embalagens
or in the
plásticas são
fridge.
as que até hoje trouxeram a melhor
Generally,
solução
they
do ponto de vista
in
de
plastic,
durabilidade do
in
item que está
durability
ali dentro.
and
Então,
item.
uma coisa líquida
It's something
fica
liquid.
melhor colocada
It
dentro
can be
de
better
pote de plástico.
put in
Existem algumas
plastic.
regulações também, não sei se vocês
There are
sabem, mas
regulations
produtos
too
de limpeza não
concerning
podem estar em
cleaning
embalagem de
material,
vidro, por
and they
exemplo. Até
cannot
é uma
be
regulamentação
in
da Anvisa,
glass.
né? Então tem
So
algumas regras.
there are
Então
some
por isso que
rules.
quando a
That's
gente pega a
why
pegada
when
dos
we
nossos
see
itens,
the
tem
footprint,
muito item como o Omo, que
there
é o
are items
cartucho, né?
like
Que é
Omo,
papel, mas tem muitos
which
shampoos,
is in
condicionadores,
carton.
sabonetes
But
e
we
embalagens
have
plásticas. Por isso a
soaps
estratégia de resíduos
and
da Unilever hoje
conditioning,
é muito
hair
focada
conditioning
nessa
in
questão
plastic.
do plástico.
So we are
Fora tudo que
focused
já
on
se tem
plastic.
hoje de
And
estudos,
nowadays
etc., a
we have
quantidade de plástico
studies
que tem
about the amount of
destinado
plastic that we
incorretamente.
have
Então a gente tem um nível de
that have to
responsabilidade
have the
que está
correct
dentro de
destination. They
casa,
must have the
que é
correct
o seguinte, a
destination.
gente foca em
i.e.,
três pilares
we
que são
focus on three
menos
pillars:
plásticos,
less
melhores
plastic,
plásticos e
better
nenhum
plastic,
plástico. Né? Para a
and
gente
no
chegar
plastic.
em nenhum plástico,
No
nós vamos passar
plastic.
por esses
To
dois
reach it,
anteriores que
we
eu falei.
have to have the two
Quando a
previous
gente fala de
ones.
menos
When you
plásticos,
talk about
o
less
grande
plastic,
exemplo
the
aí que a gente
biggest
tem
example that
são
we have
os produtos
are
concentrados
the products that are
e os
concentrated.
produtos que a gente fala que é para diluir.
We call
Alguns de
it
vocês já devem
to
ter
be
visto,
diluted.
espero que vários,
I
né?
hope that most of you
O Omo
know it.
para diluir. Então é
And
uma garrafa
when
menorzinha,
you receive a
ele
smaller
você faz em
bottle,
casa,
you prepare it at
você
home,
precisa de menos
but
embalagem
then
ali
you use
pra poder
less packaging
ter a mesma quantidade
to have the
de
same
roupa
quantity.
lavada. A maneira da gente, você reutiliza aquela
And so
embalagem
you
na sua
reuse
casa inúmeras
that
vezes.
packaging several
Então,
times
essa é
at
uma
your
maneira. A
home.
outra são
This is a very good
os
way.
refis, são os
Second one, the
sachês,
refuse.
né, que tem uma
The
questão
sachet.
de reciclabilidade, a depender do
You
qual
can
material
recycle
você
depending on
colocado,
the
mas em
material.
quantidade absoluta de
And
plástico,
the amount of
indiscutivelmente tem
plastic,
menos plástico do que a
absolute
garrafa.
plastic, you
Quando eu falo de
have
melhores
less
plásticos,
plastic
a gente está
in
dizendo
that
de
bottle.
a parte que é
So,
uma
when I say plastic,
tecnologia que a gente puxou muito,
that's the
que é a
technology,
questão da inclusão das resinas
inclusion
recicladas
of
nas embalagens.
resins
Então,
in the
quando a gente fala de
packaging.
melhor plástico,
When
é
you
ter
prefer to
embalagens
say
que já foram
better
outras,
plastic,
que já foram
it
outras, né?
is
Ou seja,
that you
usar cada
are
vez menos plástico
recycling.
virgem. E nenhum
It's not
plástico, existe
virgin plastic.
uma tecnologia
Plastic
lançada
per se
recentemente, chama Pulper,
has a technology that's
que
recent, it's named
pretende, nos
Pulpit.
próximos anos, fazer
In
com
the
que
next
algumas das
years,
nossas garrafas...
We will
Aí,
transform our
eu estou no
bottles.
slide 4, salvo engano.
If I'm not
Mas
mistaken,
esse
I am on
aí.
slide 4.
Então, essas embalagens que
The
estão na parte do nenhum
packagings
plástico é uma
considered
tecnologia
plastic.
que é papel,
It's a new
dentro
technology.
tem
Paper
um tratamento
with
suficiente,
treatment
é uma
that's
tecnologia
enough
que tem uma patente e tudo mais, suficiente para fazer com que o líquido que
to
está ali dentro
have the liquid
não
inside,
vaze, não fica aquela coisa tudo molhada. Né?
not
Então, a gente
draining.
vem evoluindo nesse
So
sentido.
we
Essa
are
estratégia
progressing.
de
It's
menos
already
plástico, melhores
registered. It's
plásticos
trademark
e nenhum
already.
plástico, né? É o que a
It's a
gente
progressing
tem
form.
como ambição.
So
No
that's
próximo
our
slide,
ambition. Next
aqui
slide.
existem alguns exemplos
There are
de
some
maneira bem
examples.
prática, né?
Very
De repente alguém
practical
pensa,
ways.
Juliana, mas o que você quer dizer com
What do you want to say
inclusão
with
da
that,
resina
Juliana?
reciclada?
Inclusion
Significa que nos
in
nossos
the
shampoos,
recycling
condicionadores e
network.
cremes da marca
It means
C, da
that,
TSME, essa outra que tem um nome um
brands
pouquinho
that we
mais comprido,
have,
Love, Beauty and Planet,
Love, Beauty,
que fala
Planet,
de amor pelo
talking
planeta
about
e pela
loving
beleza,
the
né?
planet
Dove,
and
Suave,
beauty,
Clear. Em todas essas
Dove,
marcas nossas,
all
a
these
depender da
brands,
cor dessa
depending on the
embalagem
color of the packaging,
mais pela cor mesmo,
more color than any
o
other
sucesso de inclusão dessa resina
is
reciclada. Existe
the
nível
success of
de
inclusion
dificuldade
of
técnica
this
com
recycled
relação a
resin.
cheiro, com relação à aparência,
It's also
mas também
considered
existe
the
nível
smell,
de dificuldade de encontrar a resina,
format,
nesse caso do polietileno de alta
in the
densidade.
case of resin
Isso aqui advém
with
de tudo que foi
PP
falado
of high
antes, sobre a
density.
questão de tudo que a gente precisa ainda
It's in
evoluir
fact
a respeito de coleta seletiva,
presenting that
separação
we have
e da
to
responsabilidade
progress,
de cada
and we have to be
indivíduo.
responsible,
Então,
every individual.
esse número vem crescendo
This number is growing,
exponencialmente,
expanding
e a gente acredita
exponentially,
muito
and we
que
believe
a
that
gente vai ter,
we will
muito em breve,
have
um portfólio,
very soon a
se não
portfolio
completo, com quase todo ele igual
almost
ao
complete
3CM, que utiliza
to
nas
the 3CM
garrafas 100% de
that
resina reciclada.
using
Esse é o
in
nosso
the bottles
objetivo. Quando a gente vai para a
100%
linha,
of
próximo slide,
recycled
por favor,
resin.
para a linha de limpeza,
Concerning
que tem
cleaning
uma marca
material,
que é
a
Omo,
brand that's
Comfort, e
Omo,
essa outra marca
Comfort,
que é sétima geração.
and seventh
Também aí tem
generation,
alguns exemplos com números
some
bem
examples
altos. Né?
with
A
high
gente tem um
numbers.
exercício,
There is
e
an
essa alguém me perguntava se
exercise.
eventualmente qual é a
If you ask me,
dificuldade
what's the
interna.
difficulty
Existe
internally?
um exercício interno entre
There is
as
a
áreas
domestic
muito importante de
exercise
escolhas. Né?
of
Então,
choice.
eventualmente, para
Eventually,
lançar um
going
novo cheiro, né?
ahead,
uma nova
let's
variante
say,
de
the
comfort,
new scent,
se o
a new way
desejo
of
da cor
having
da garrafa for
comfort,
muito
the
específico, muito
color of the
determinado
bottle
pela área de marketing, eventualmente
that
a
is
gente consegue
chosen
ter
by
menores
marketing,
índices. Então,
maybe we'll
qual que é
have less
o
problem.
esforço que a
What's the effort
Unilever
that
faz
Unilever
hoje?
is doing nowadays?
Outras áreas, como a área de
Other
compra,
areas
como a nossa,
like ours,
e também
purchase,
a área
etc.,
técnica,
and the
consigo
technical
explicar o
area.
benefício
You
das
have to explain
escolhas
the benefit of
que hoje a gente
choices
tem
that we have today
para oferecer
to
na
offer.
gôndola. Então, por que a gente não
Why, to
escolhe,
the
por exemplo, garrafas mais
public, for
escuras e
instance,
consegue incluir mais resina? Então, esse é um
should we have
exercício que
darker
se faz a todo
bottles
momento.
with more
Tá?
resin?
Tudo isso, né, ao longo
Everything
desses últimos
has
anos,
to be considered.
eu até fiquei
Is being
um pouco de
considered
vergonha
of
de
the
falar das
last
minhas
years.
toneladas, depois que
You
você
see,
contou
talking
de
about
tanta
tons
tonelada que tem de
and
resíduo aqui em São
tons
Paulo,
of
mas é
waste
claro,
that we have
não
in
dá para
town.
comparar com
After
o
we
dia de uma
listen to
cidade,
that,
mas
of
a gente vem
course,
nesse
it
esforço de inclusão
scales, but
dessa
we
resina,
see this effort
já
of
com uma
inclusion of the resin
12.800 toneladas de
with
plástico pós-consumo deixaram então de ser destinadas,
2,800.
justamente porque a gente reutilizou,
We
elas retornaram para as
If
nossas
we
embalagens.
reuse,
Isso é
they
o, que
will be
é o
smaller and
equivalente
smaller in
a
quantity.
17 mil
It
toneladas de
corresponds
CO2 que
to
deixaram de ser
7,000
emitidas.
tons
Lembrando
of
que nós estamos aqui
CO2.
falando de emissões nesse evento
So
PreCop26.
if we're talking about
Então,
emissions,
é
that's the
desse
result.
esforço, né,
The
se puder
effort.
ir para o próximo, de tudo isso que a gente faz, a
Everything
gente
that we
acredita que a
do,
gente tem o
we
direito, a
believe
gente,
that we have the
inclusive,
right.
tem bastante claro isso de
It's clear
posicionar e
to
dizer qual que é o
position
nosso
ourselves
desejo
and say,
a
what do
respeito do
we
que
want?
aconteça nesse evento, né, nessa PreCop,
That's what
da
we
participação
want
brasileira,
in
que em
this
São Paulo está
PreCop
muito
em São Paulo,
a somar dentro disso,
seeing what
a
we
respeito do que se
want,
espera
what
da
we
COP26.
expect
Então, a gente
in
tem 3
COP26.
grandes pontos. Um deles é
This
melhorar a NDC
big
para não ultrapassar
points,
1,5 graus
improving,
Celsius de
not
aumento
going
de temperatura.
over
O outro é criar um plano de
1.5
recuperação
grade in
justo e resiliente.
temperature,
E o
and
suporte às soluções
resilience
baseadas na
and support
natureza.
to
Todos esses
conditions
itens têm
that
detalhes
required by
também
nature.
junto com eles, como por exemplo,
For
e
instance,
a gente não tem problema em falar isso,
if we have
por
no
ser
problem to
indústria, mas
talk about it,
um dos exemplos,
we are
por exemplo, é
industries.
interromper
One example,
incentivos públicos e
interrupt
subsídios
the
para fontes de
subsides
energias não
for
renováveis.
points of energy that
Então,
are
isso é
not
uma coisa que
renewable.
precisa acabar
That's
e
something that we
precisa
have to
ter,
eliminate.
eventualmente, um estímulo às
Eventually,
outras energias.
We
Isso
have
que
to
faz mais
consider that
sentido.
in terms
Né?
of energy. It
Então,
makes more
de forma
sense.
geral,
In a
aqui estão os
general
nossos
sense,
desejos para a
our
COP,
wishes
mas
for
a
the
gente tem um compromisso
COP26.
de tempo, eu também não quero passar.
I cannot go farther
O que eu
due
queria
to
deixar
time
bastante
constraint,
claro aqui é
but food for
que
thought.
todo esse tema de resíduos, né, de
Concerning
gestão de resíduos,
waste,
ele tem uma
the
responsabilidade, aí
theme
o meu caro
represents
Valverde vai
responsibility.
saber, é
Carlos Valverde
é
will
o
talk
professor
about it.
sobre
He's a
isso,
professor
da
on the theme.
responsabilidade compartilhada, que a própria
Shared
Política Nacional dos Resíduos
responsibility.
nos traz. Né? Mas a
Something
gente
you can
quer falar da nossa
register.
responsabilidade, eu não vou falar
What's
da
our
responsabilidade do
responsibility?
governo ou
I'm
do
not talking
cidadão.
about the
Eu estou aqui
governments.
com o microfone como empresa.
or anybody else.
Então,
I'm
a gente
here
faz parte de um programa bastante conhecido que se chama Dê a Mão para o Futuro,
We
que é
are
parte
in a program
da
that's
nossa
named Hand in Hand
responsabilidade para
for the
cumprimento das metas
future, not
do
with
acordo
the future.
setorial.
So,
Mas
in
não
our
apenas,
labs,
por
we're
que eu não o
studying
trouxe aqui como grande
programs.
exemplo? Porque ele é um programa setorial,
This program
tem
is
bastante
sectorial,
sucesso,
with
mas ele não
lots
é
of
proprietário
success,
nosso. E
but it's
não
not
é
our
só de
own.
recuperação
We
que a gente
don't
quer
have the
falar. Né? Esse
ownership,
programa
and it's not
essencialmente
involved in
fala
the
de
regaining,
recuperar o que a gente colocou.
because
E
we
que a
have
gente
to
foca
regain
em tentar ter cada vez mais
what we
embalagens
placed. We
que
want to
sejam
have more and more
reutilizadas e que
packaging that
retornem para
can
a nossa
be
cadeia.
reused and
Na
go back to the
forma da economia
production
circular,
chain
seja
in an
plástico, seja
articulated
com outros
way.
itens. Então,
Is
o
it
nosso exercício
plastic
constante
or
é
not?
de
That's our
revisitar o nosso portfólio, as
exercise,
tecnologias, para
to
fazer
revisit our
que o nosso
portfolios,
impacto
to
seja cada vez
have
menor
our
ou,
plastic
inclusive,
smaller,
positivo, né? Gerar um impacto positivo.
or
Era isso, espero que eu
generated
tenha
a
sido claro.
positive
Estou à
impact.
disposição
I
para
hope I was
perguntas.
clear,
Obrigada.
and I'm here for Q&A.
Muito obrigado pelas contribuições da senhora Juliana Marra. Antes
Thank
de
you very
passar a
much, Juliana
palavra
Barros.
ao mestre José
We
Valverde,
pass
eu
the
quero
floor
agradecer
to
a
Mestre José
companhia
Valverde, the master in
ainda,
the
sempre
subject.
presente conosco,
Now,
das
Isa
pessoas que
was
estão nos
present
acompanhando
with
pelo
us.
YouTube e também
We're
pelo
using
Zoom.
YouTube
Pelo
and
Zoom, as
Zoom.
pessoas credenciadas, um número que
People
atinge
that are
superior a
accredited.
130
It's
participantes.
over
Agora, por
130
último, nesse painel,
participants.
o
Last but
mestre
not
José
least,
Valverde.
Master José Valverde.
Obrigado. Bom, senhoras e senhores, boa tarde. É com imensa satisfação que participo aqui da primeira conferência internacional PreCop26 São Paulo. Sem dúvida nenhuma, um evento que antecipa a nossa conexão com a COP26, que em próximas semanas se iniciará no Reino Unido, em Glasgow. E aonde esse evento pretende, de uma maneira antecipatória, colocar a demonstração do senso de urgência, das oportunidades, inclusive, que temos de avançar para uma economia neutra em carbono, mas também colocar como um ponto importante aqui a cooperação internacional. Eu sou portador do cumprimento do governador João Dória, do vice-governador
Rodrigo Garcia, and the Infrastructure Secretary of the State of São Paulo, Engenheiro Marcos Benito. So I greet you via Mrs. Marta Suplicy, Secretary of International Relations in the State of São Paulo, and I greet the organization of this event via our friend Carlos Fernandes, Executive Secretary of Sustainable Development. Same way I greet you all, the colleagues making this table, Túlio, Juliana, people that I had the opportunity to be with, discussing in a propositive way to advance with management of solid waste. The civil society via Zoom or any other media, it's important to be together in this important event. It's here with us from Pernambuco, Judge Gilda Cristina, which is in the family branch, has a big presence in terms of environmental issues. I bring to you something that shows what we are doing nowadays. This afternoon, I use the Agenda 21. We've placed the objectives of sustainable investment, and I have to mention the power and the strategical aspect of think globally and act globally. It's a point that mobilizes the society in relation to what we live as citizens in towns. When the city of São Paulo, due to its protagonism, the metropolis it is, we have an event like that, we add value. We get together around the theme. In the state of São Paulo, the scenario is general. we have in its generation area 40,000 tons of waste, solid waste, urban ones. That's the state. The final destination of it in São Paulo is environmentally it's adequate. If you consider that the state of São Paulo, 97.8% go to landfills, licensed ones. This conformity, environmental conformity, if you compare to sustainability, it imposes several challenges, and I'm sure that COPs will be the moment for that. As Túlio has said, presenting the projects of the city of São Paulo and progress. With what we consider it refers to a challenge concerning solid waste. Figures concerning emissions in the state of São Paulo. The base is 2018, 147 million of tons of CO2 were emitted. So the theme solid waste is 12% in this generation. This is a big challenge. It's placed, including the sector of solid waste, as the third of CO2 in the state of São Paulo. We have energy above it, it's strategically necessary, and the agro-cattle raising, this division. So we have assistance in the Secretariat of Infrastructure to prepare a report that brought us the strategies to be looked for decarbonizing in the state of São Paulo. Sectors that the state has included in this theme, and so solid waste is included here by us. The potential in terms of project, we have this big problem. Besides the waste, it's necessary to consider the significant alternative related to decarbonation. So, Túlio presented the concept of Apple Park. What's the potential we have to collect the gases in the landfills to transform the biogas, biomethane in energy? We took part in an important plant in the hinterland, Veolia, where we inaugurated an important system of capture of biogas and transformation into energy, electric energy. Following this line, the state of São Paulo is placing itself in relation to the challenge of decarbonizing ahead of us. What are we doing concerning this connection of the theme of the climate, of the climate change, decarbonizing? João Dória, governor, on the 20th of July, published the decree 6581 with the adherence of the state of São Paulo to the campaign Race to Zero in the Convention of the UN concerning climate change. It's an important document of commitment with the targets. Unilever was one of them, contributing to the document. A set of civil society took part, and we have done commitments concerning the axle of solid waste. The focus and guidelines of Estado de São Paulo in this area. So it's time to close. I have 2 minutes to conclude. So I anticipate that.
Vamos lá. As diretrizes do Estado
The
de São
guidelines
Paulo,
of the
elas
state of
colocam
São
muito
Paulo
na linha da regionalização,
refer to
das novas rotas
regionalization,
tecnológicas,
new
mas
technological routes,
baseia-se
and
na
is based
própria legislação, que é
on
a
the
política
legislation,
nacional, que
that's
a
the
Juliana
national policy
aqui
that
mencionou,
Juliana
e
mentioned,
há toda uma
and
conexão
the connection
daquilo que
of
nós temos
what
no
we
nosso
have
plano
in
de
our
ação
plan
climática com a
concerning
nossa
climate
política de
change
resíduos.
and our
E
policy
com
of
isso, o que eu
waste.
quero dizer? Que
What
o
I
nosso
want to say with
desafio
that,
aqui no
our
âmbito do Estado de São
challenge
Paulo
in
é
the state
buscar
of São
a
Paulo is
valorização
looking
dos
for the
resíduos sólidos. Aqui
valuing of
no
the
Estado de São
solid
Paulo, nessa
waste.
gestão, nós
In
temos
this
dado um passo
management, we are
adiante no que
going
diz
ahead
respeito ao aproveitamento
concerning
energético.
the
Isso
use of
significa
energy,
dizer que não há nenhuma
so there is
contradição
no
com aquilo que,
contradiction
inclusive,
with
foi
what
colocado aqui
is
pelo Túlio,
placed
da
by
hierarquia
Túlio
da gestão de
concerning the
resíduos sólidos,
hierarchy
sendo o não
of
gerar,
solid
reduzir,
waste
reutilizar, também
hierarchy,
na linha que a própria
and the line
Juliana
that
trouxe, são as
Juliana has
premissas que
brought,
orientam aí a
the
Unilever, mas
premises
que
that
nós temos que
guide
dar um passo
Unilever.
adiante,
We
porque
have to go
nós ainda
ahead
no século XXI
because in
fazemos a
the,
gestão dos resíduos
the
como se
centuries,
fazia no
21
século XIX.
centuries,
Então,
we
o
do the
grande
same
desafio
as
do
we
Estado de São
did
Paulo
2
é na linha
centuries
da
ago.
valorização dos resíduos,
And so,
a
In the
regionalização
regionalization costs
viabilizar
to make
escala
viable
e
by
viabilidade
scale
econômica
in
para que a
economic
gente possa
viability so
avançar
that we can
nesse tema,
advance
sobretudo dos
in
resíduos
this
sólidos
subject,
urbanos, da
in the
mesma maneira
urban
as
waste
novas rotas
and the
tecnológicas
new
são
technological
fundamentais
routes which are
para o
fundamental
aproveitamento
for
energético e
the
também
improvement in
iniciativas como o setor
energy
empresarial
initiative as the
necessita
entrepreneurships
colocar, que é, por
have to
exemplo,
be
a
put
análise
forward,
do ciclo
the
de vida do
analysis
produto,
of
o
the
ecodesign,
life
porque eles
cycle of the
também
product
são fatores
because
importantes.
they
Eu
are
finalizo
important
dizendo
factors.
aqui
And I end
que
by
há uma
saying that there is
expectativa e
an
perspectiva muito
expectation
grande em
and
relação à
perspective
COP26,
in
no
reference to
sentido de que a agenda
COP26
de
in the
resíduos sólidos
sense that the
se
agenda of
sedimente
waste will be
nesse processo
sedimented
de
in this
descarbonização. Se fala com propriedade do
We
papel
talk a lot
da
about
agenda
the role
verde
of the
e de outros
green
temas,
agenda and
mas sem
other
dúvida
agendas,
nenhuma
but
nós temos a expectativa,
undoubtedly
primeiro,
we
que
have
o
the
mercado de
expectation
carbono
that
consumido,
the
seja por
carbon
resíduos, a
market
própria
will be
cidade de São
consumed
Paulo
in
foi
São
pioneira em
Paulo, was
projetos de
pioneer
NDL
in
para a
NDL
questão da
to the
captação
issue of
do gás
capturing
da
gas
mitigação dos
and
efeitos
mitigation
dos
of
gases de
the
efeito estufa. Então, nós
greenhouse
temos que,
effects.
o setor agro traz
So the
também na questão
agro
dos
sector
de
talks
suínos,
about
por exemplo,
the
grande potencial
waste
na
of
questão do biogás.
porks
Então, a
and
expectativa nossa é que haja
improving
uma
in the
boa
biogas.
regulamentação dos
A
mecanismos
good
de
law for
recuperação
this
voluntária,
regulation,
especialmente ali na questão do artigo
especially
6
in
do
the
mercado
issue
de
of
carbono,
Article
que a
6
gente possa
in
convergir
carbon
e avançar,
market, and
sobretudo
we
na
can
direção de uma
correct
economia
and
zero
advance
carbono.
in
E uma outra
economy
coisa que é
for carbon
fundamental
and something
para
else that
a
is
agenda de
fundamental for
resíduos sólidos,
the
são os instrumentos
reduction of
econômicos,
waste
a
agenda.
definição de
Is
financiamento
definition
para o
of financing
desenvolvimento
for
de
the
países
development
como
of
o nosso que
countries
estamos
like
em desenvolvimento,
ours that is being
possam
developed now,
investir
that they
nesse
may
grande
invest
processo
in this
transformador
great
que o
transforming
setor de
process
resíduos sólidos
in
precisa.
waste
Aqui, o
that
Estado de São
is
Paulo,
needed.
e aí eu finalizo
Here in
mesmo
São
aqui,
Paulo, and I will end
levará
now,
isso,
we'll
orgulho a
take
todos nós,
this,
liderados aí pelo governador
we are very
Dória,
proud of it,
levará o projeto de reflorestamento
to
de São
the
Paulo,
project of
levará o
reforesting
ICMS
São
ambiental,
Paulo,
que
and
será
also improve the
injeção de
taxes,
recurso na veia dos municípios para resíduos sólidos, e o
VNC,
zoneamento ecológico econômico
VAC
fundamental para o
tax,
desenvolvimento sustentável.
which is
Muito obrigado,
very
parabéns
important
pelo
for the
evento, e que
sustainable
tenhamos aí uma conclusão
effect.
produtiva para a cidade de São
I
Paulo.
hope
Obrigado
this
a
will
todos.
be very productive for São Paulo City. Thank you very much.
Nós, da Secretaria Municipal de Relações Internacionais,
The
agradecemos a
Secretary,
participação,
we
colaboração
thank your
do José
participation
Valverde, Juliana Marra,
of
e também do Túlio
José
Barroso,
Valverde,
nessa
Túlio Barroso,
penúltimo
Juliana
painel
Marra in
da
this
PreCop. Vamos dar um
before
pequeno
last
intervalo e
panel. We will
finalizaremos
stop
com
now.
o último painel.
No, we're
O
going
intervalo
now.
pouquinho maior.
The-
Pode emendar?
we,
Vamos chamar
they're saying that there will not be a coffee break. We will go straight to the last panel. I wanted to be generous. I wanted to invite you for the coffee break.
Vamos deixar o café para
But
finalmente, porque a gente
let's just finish up and go ahead with this. So we're going to put on the next table.
Só mais instantes, estão conectando lá o que vai ser virtual, tá? Então, voltando. Dando continuidade, vamos para o último painel.
Continuing, we go to the last panel, the legislative commissions for environment and what they have done for the environment. We invite to the table State Deputy Marina Elo. Here she is. Marina Elo, she is President of Environment Front and Vice President of Environment. Together we are also with the Vereador Celso Tripoli, Chechel Tripoli, and we are trying to connect with Paulo Frange because there's a problem in the building about this, the connection. So please, Marina Elo.
Obrigada. Também eu queria tentar a apresentação. Boa tarde a todas e todos.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I admire this effort from São Paulo to prepare to COP26, so difficult during the pandemic. So it's very important, this national effort for the states, municipalities, to articulate the importance for this preparation for the event that might be fundamental for the way the world is taking. I'll talk a little bit about this. First, I want to thank, in name of Marta Suplicy, the invitation for all in this organization and all the present people here and through internet. I'm very happy to be here with these people that I admire so much. I would also like to say the challenge at the moment, at first, the challenges for the moment. At first, I want to present myself as a representative for São Paulo and taking also very seriously the environmental sustainability. We talk about our strategies. As the beginning of my mandate, I was fighting for this. I've been working on it for the past 20 years. For the last 2 years, I'm Vice President for the Assembly Environmental Committee, working with the municipalities of São Paulo to build the project of city and state to respect the environment. I want to show something about our experience to construct a case, the program for basic sanitation and environment in this by law within the state, but also to mention how important it is to be in this space. I believe we are in a critical moment of the humanity in reference to the climate and the time we have and the space of acting, which is very restricted so that we can maintain the conditions of life on Earth in the impact and getting more deeply into this subject, which is related to the light of people and the welfare. Because this is a reality, concrete reality, that when we see the impact of this climate change, we see who will be impacted first. It's the more vulnerable people. So it would be the people in the peripheral people that live in São Paulo, because they lack water and the quality of air, and they always face this. They have less opportunity for employment, and this movement is based on this inequality in a way to superate this in the society. The model is not to ask only the technical perspectives, the emission of carbon and how to preserve the green areas and the relationship to the environment, but also talk about the impact on the human life and where we can improve this to everybody with the new model of development perspective. And that's we are trying to build. It's a project for the country, state, and a project that I was able to think for São Paulo, and I was a candidate to be mayor in São Paulo in the last elections, and to construct this in the city. And we have various proposals for the city of São Paulo, which are very interesting, and I liked it very much. And the presence we have in the country to be a model and in a city which is really sustainable. So I'm going to tell you what we are constructing in the assembly.
Pode passar. Eu vou virar porque, olha, daqui até ali eu não enxergo de jeito nenhum.
I can't see the slide from here, so I have to look on my back here. I want to share with you because when we talked about environment, our focus was for the basic sanitation for the state, because it's seriously for hybrid safety, lack of water. We know presently that Brazil is only an agriculture potential because we are a hydric potential and we have a forest potential. We take the forest down, we lose the water, and we put the lives of the people in risk. So as from the perspective and the national environment to the deforestation, to the management of the state in reference to water. Here we're talking about checking this and looking into the crisis we had in 2014. We saw that we bought many pipelines, a lot of pipelines in urgency, spent millions of reais, and nothing was done, and so we have the same problem. So we see that trees and
perspectiva do saneamento básico.
The perspective of wastewater, and when we're talking about health and quality of waters. In the beginning, we focused on this environmental front, and due to the absence of accumulation and interest on this theme, we decided to use this space that is connected with the movements and organizations and with the academia, and we decided to get all the themes concerning environment to be discussed. And so we have 4 groups of work. So water and wastewater treatment is linked here. So I'll talk a little bit of what we've done in this sense. I'll talk about the role of the Committee of Environment, and it has to do with environment, of course, and the focus is the public sector, the entrepreneurship, and the representatives of the citizens to do an agenda. We want to persist on this path in this structure and the legislative power, focus on water and wastewater treatment. We also are focused on the security and safety in the area of use of water, responsibility with the hydro resources. I brought here the positive things that the government has done, and we have now the presence of representatives of the government working with us. We have advances and the assembly of people interested in the same theme contributed to the approval of the environmental VAT, alteration in the law, the legislation of VAT, the principles and concerning the rules that we have, the percentage, 1% for environmental indicators, we agreed and increased it to 2%, and the criteria are different now. And the municipal policy of solid waste is changed, is improved, and it also refers to the green area of reforesting. It's another indicator. If we have better result for management of solid waste and we have a better area well taken care, will receive more support from the part of the government, guaranteeing, even economically speaking, more return on investment. It's our reality that we have to consider. New Rio Pinheiros, New Pinheiro rivers. It is very significant. We approved and we discussed it deeply to understand the project and to understand the guarantees we could have and tie everything in order to give the authorization from the part of our legislative office. So the parliamentary front also approved it. It's a reality, it's possible, and it's cool, in my opinion. Most of it refers to treatment of wastewater. So there were people that were not served by wastewater treatment, and now they are. So the river is cleaner, life is more dignified. Another point I like to mention is the Brau project. It is inserted and linked to the forest code, to reforesting in the rural areas. It's a theme that is over 10 years of discussion between rural sector and environmental sectors. And we know, I have this perspective, that what do we have to do and who we have to contact, who is responsible concerning deforesting in the state of São Paulo. It's not accepted to discuss something that should be already settled. We have to plant trees, we have to do the reforesting. So the highest number that Brazil has reached is 1,200,000 hectares in the area in São Paulo. It's very significant. So, and this program starts now. We have millions and millions of trees planted. It's an effort of regeneration that we are working on. The program Nascentes, we are proud of. It's monitoring of our water basins, caring about the water in this perspective. We have an amendment in EDS, that's the institute that does the program with IPT, that's the research department of the government. Concerning deforesting in Amazonia, we use the same rule for the water basins in the state of São Paulo. We have a partnership with CIMA and the Institute of Environment in the state of São Paulo and with the civil society. We are taking care of it and we want to preserve our forests. I have some analyses that are criticisms. We could have improved concerning the agreements we had. In fact, we have commitments with a new sustainable model. It does not have to be parallel, it has to be transversal. We have tax incentives in the state of São Paulo, but we know that it does not help jobs. It does not have an economy in long-term view. And in terms of carbon saving, it refers to use of petrol and more greenhouse emissions. That we are giving incentive using the money in the wrong direction. What's the guarantee that the automobile manufacturers have if they invest in electric cars? That's a discussion. There is a veto going on. We are against some articulations. We want the regulation of the new landmark. It was the competence of the states. And we had to regionalize the areas in order to go ahead in partnership, in commitments with the state of São Paulo in terms of basic and correct development of our evolution and progress concerning climate change and the area development. So in fact, you have a big confusion, legally speaking, and in terms of territory. It is a big struggle and brings a complexity to the units in general. And we also have an important presence with resistance. We eliminated an institute that was an organization in the state of São Paulo, and it was very sad because it was important for the state of São Paulo. So it was wrong. So our experience with Italisa, we use it in the space of public policy construction, and we have several events concerning fauna and flora, and we have to consider all the public policies in this sense, using the government. Bringing some examples to you. We have meetings, periodical meetings with the presence of other groups. Let's see what happened on the last 10 years of state policy. In fact, what we have as a reality, it's a bill that was not passed concerning greenhouse gases, quality of air, So we took the project again, discussed it again, tried the bill again, and now, right now, the Secretariat is having an open hearing concerning the gradual plan to combat the policies that are against the reforestation, etc. You can take part in it. Just visit the website. And so it's about climate change. It is one of the main things that we have to know to combat what's against it. Adaptation is key. We have to adapt to the one we already have. The projects that have not been discussed. When we have drizzle, etc., when we have drizzle, things that we have to discuss. We have to discuss what kind of world we want, what climate we want, to bring the regard to the indigenous people, the minorities, find solutions, women. In our agenda, briefly, we've done an inventory that is important. In October last year, with the state, integrated plan to combat fire, planning to combat several fires we had over the last years, where we could have more strategical plans with better inventory to be a protagonist of a combat to fire. They are bad for human health and for the environment. And then sharing with you, that's what I wanted to share with you, is here on the screen, my thanks to you all, to the state of São Paulo, understanding that we are responsible, we have to go ahead in this climate change, looking for the right sustainable model with partnership with the government. If we are required to be the opposition, we will be the opposition. We have to take the right way with sustainability in terms of environment. Thank you. Thank you very much for the considerations, for the cooperation. Now we will listen to Tripoli, the representative.
Só um momento, por favor, o áudio não está chegando. Agora sim.
Estão me ouvindo?
Sim.
Boa tarde a todos. Primeiro, agradecer o convite que a secretária Marta Suplicy me fez. Não só agradecer pelo convite, mas agradecer pelo empenho que ela vem tendo nessa frente da sustentabilidade.
What she can see in the sustainability and
disso, mas nesse momento ela tem sido
We are now
muito
having
forte, muito firme.
Online transmission. Now we have the signal, and we're talking about the targets to progress in the urgent moment we are. Marine Lu, that is an admirable person. I like her work. It's very important in the state office, and also the other colleagues making this table in the state of São Paulo. We have many actions in relation to environment, and we have to talk a little bit about the conditions of what we are doing along the 4 years. I'm part of the Healthcare Committee, and I am a president for 4 years of the Extraordinary Commission concerning environment.
para que a gente possa escutar as pessoas, principalmente.
The project in the ordinary commissions, we talk about this a little bit, is to clarify the population a little bit more. All the projects that are registered or not, is the conditions to be first approved, to be sent to the plenary in first and second voting. Then if it's approved, it goes to the mayor, and if it's not approved, it goes back to redo the project. Not to present. The Health Commission is ordinary commission. All the projects have to go through that. For environment, it works much better to bring the impact. About 15 or 20 days ago, we invited Oceania to present a work that they did in the issue of throwing away the waste in plastic throughout the world. They brought us a lot of information, a trail of dirt, and I'm going to suggest a reading in a while. I'll give the name of the book. Oceana presented a report about the ocean. It was a deep project, study, a survey in the whole world to understand what is happening in the oceans of the planet. I did some laws that were approved, 3 laws which are very important. The law of not doing plastic straws for drinking, and cups, knives and forks in plastic. And the last one, that all the commercial places, they should serve filtered water for the clients, so that the customer can drink it in glass cups. So everybody in the restaurants and hotels, they can ask for the water of the house, and they can serve that to the customers and to the employees. And it's very important that we don't use plastic cups anymore for water. The compromise to decrease the use that was imposed by the environmental, by UNA. It's the only city in Latin America, in Brazil, that signed, some multinational industries signed it, but it would be very good that the state and Brazil would sign this compromise, so that we would have guidance, especially in São Paulo, to diminish the residues in this line. I got an information these days about indications of environmental world from IMURB, is the sector that regulates that in Brazil. They received indication about composting. Lots of good things are happening here in São Paulo City, and few people know about it. We have to see a way to disclose this, because good actions bring new actions. So we have to think about how to change our behavior and the habits we have to change. We were trained and taught to consume, and we consume very wrongly. I wasn't born knowing that. I came to learn it very late. And I'm a family of environmental people, and more than 40 years hearing this from my family. We have to recycle, we have to composting, and a lot of this evolved and is happening now. When we talk about this subject in anywhere you go, everybody's talking about it at the moment. And there's an urgency to decrease our waste. The planet is very fast. We see the oceans, where we have a continent of plastic, which are on the surface of the water. We know that this was found in the lungs of the sea world. We have a lot of problems to face, but we have to speak about good things that are happening and the conditions that may be a way for us to expand this subject. I say that today we have to talk about this subject in all the areas with friends in environment. We have to change our habits and then try to take this to the people that live with us, that are around us, the neighbors, the streets, our city. So I think that the commissions are very important so that we will take the novelty of this subject for everybody and how we can change all this. I heard Marina saying about this. When there is a flood because of the rain, it's happening completely out of normal, independently of normal thing. But we saw already a great peak in this sense. And when we have a very strong rain in the city of São Paulo, the water comes up, the floods, ruins your furniture, and part of these people, they say that the city hall didn't clean the small rivers. I've been follow up on this. What we don't throw away, we consume in the streets. Just showing the executive part.
Continue.
There has been a small problem in the transmission, but it's going on. This is a very important subject and a very important event, and we should be connected to that. We're doing the incredible work. But I want to participate. I want to know what's happening in the world so that we can bring the new things to São Paulo and take what São Paulo has in novelties for the rest of the planet. In the composting, recycling, it's a very nice work we are doing, and we have to continue it. And what we need also is to understand and convince the industry to change their design. Besides the citizen and the civil society, when they buy something, reduce the consume, buy less, we are very consuming people. And besides that we can consume besides the necessary to see what's possible to recycle, what was recycled already, and take your own bags to the supermarkets backpack so you don't consume so much plastic. We can do that very well. Maybe in the beginning it's a little bit difficult, but if you develop this habit, you get used to it, and then you develop new habits. And the children that they, they come they come with a new chip with 4.0, and it's easy for them to learn that and see how we can educate these children for this to start in this classroom so that the children learn very early and so that they don't go through this problem when they grow up like we are having now. What we did and the people before us were doing. As I said, this talk can go very far, and there are a lot of errors there in function of the climate of the rivers and the sea. We don't have a unique solution. Recycling will solve this. Composting will solve this. No, we have to expand this subject so that everybody, in the minimum detail, anybody who throws a paper on the floor, anything, I find it very strange when I go to the bakery, buy some bread, I buy a couple of items. They ask me, do you want a plastic bag? I say, no, I can take it in my hand. I don't need a bag to take this with me. I buy very little things. So we have to develop this habit. And I would like to just end it by saying Pan Clima in São Paulo that I received from Eduardo de Castro these days. I suggest that you can you see this box I'm holding up? Look, it's a lesson. You can see everything in this guide. A lot of information. And I think the Secretary Marta Suplicy, she covers all the secretaries, all the legislation in the state of São Paulo, so that we have a junction. We don't have an adversary. We don't fight with anybody. It's us who have to do this. We have to expand the environmental conscience in your house, internally, on your street, in your neighborhood, in the mayor, in the city hall. Thank you very much being with you, and will pay attention so that we can do something all together in benefit of the city and for the future generations. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado ao vereador Cecel Trípoli. Nós estamos com dificuldade de conexão com o vereador Dr. Paulo Frange, mas conseguimos agora reconectar. Por favor, vereador, faça uma fala para nós de 4 minutos para encerrarmos essa pré-conferência.
Now we give the floor to the representative Paulo Frange, and he will have 5 minutes to give us a message. I want to talk the subject about urban problems, to see the solutions for the community, especially for society. It presents the society to cover the needs of the citizen. There's no doubt that we have to deal with this for all the country and responsibility. I want to talk about our role here in São Paulo. We are commemorating 50 years of strategy plan for São Paulo. This is for the industry and special areas, with no participation of nothing. We didn't know about this subject. After '88, the first plan by Jânio Quadros. It went through resources with nothing. It didn't start. The first plan of strategy objective was in 2002 and 2004 with Marta Suplicy. Then we had a direction for 30 or 31 sub-mayors treating the soil. We were dealing with distribution of the areas that we were dealing, peripheral areas that had rain problems. There was a great advance because in 2001 we received the greatest present in our history. It's a mark in our society, in legislation. But in 2014, the strategic plan was differentiated, and the information of the previous plan had a great participation of society. And this participation showed all the needs of the society, mainly dealing with environment. São Paulo is becoming green. Everything was dealt with in that area, in that moment. And we talk in 2016. We went through 114 places. Thousands of people hundreds of people were in this debate, more than 100 people. And after this sanitation, more than 1,000 people participated, an extraordinary number of contributions. This mark for our strategic plan of zoning is present. It's the revision foreseen for 2021. It took 50 years from the first plan. Executive is doing this in the next 2 months, certainly. What was defined that can change and change a lot drastically in São Paulo in reference to climate, mobility, and sustainability. The demarcations of the city by axles, and 6% of its territory was to transform the terrain in a green area throughout the axles of metro buses, in the corridors of metro buses. And this made the worker that uses the transport become more close to each other. And these axles are activated because they're the metro, the train, and the buses. They're bus corridors. And now, in time, we have new stations for metro line, especially in the municipality of São Paulo. This made easier and decreased the time the people who stayed in buses going to work and coming back. It improves their quality of life, and the emission of carbons was decreased. The city facilitated also commercially to sub-axle in 8% of the territory. Now it's 6% of axles, 8% of sub-axles. In these areas, the buses go through the line on the right-hand side. So the human mobility in the state of São Paulo is more clear. The revision we're going to see now, one of the great points to be treated is the bettering the centers so that we can produce more employments and depend less on the transportation, so they can work closer to their homes. there are many other situations that were constructed in this period that is still being discussed. The planet are being strategic, and we have a rural part with better definition, and the territory of São Paulo has 11.7% in special zones with the interest, another 8.8% over type 1, where we don't have problems with the rain. Yesterday, we talked about this project to accelerate this quality of life and what comes with it, to put into liberty with all this director. This will facilitate and qualify the city. In reference to the basic sanitation, the goals which are foreseen, we have a percentage of drinking water and sewerage which is much more comfortable. And revision of the master plan might get us closer of the wish of a more sustainable city and for a better quality of human life. We are in the line of buses with electric energy in non-fossil. This certainly will happen at this moment. So we have covered our role there. As we are in this environment that we are talking about this, to be able to value the figure of the person who works in this, the clear rules to be rational with the urban situation. All this is very important, and we are dealing with it. The strategic master plan 2014, we increased the areas, the green areas. You have government, you have 1 minute to conclude. And we also are marking these areas of social interest. What we see now for São Paulo City, we have a clear legislation to rule the antennas in the state of São Paulo, making internet easier, expanding this distribution, and treating the territories where there's health issues and so on. To get
in the extremes of the city, it represents the right of the collectivity and the connection of this population that was excluded along the time. So we'll have better quality in terms of environment. And for sure, this COP26 and this PreCop in São Paulo is improving the quality. Of course, to foster what is happening here, we see that we have to put in practice this technology and add value to life quality of São Paulo people. I thank for the invitation. And sorry, we have technical difficulties. We did not get the connection in time. And it's very good to talk about the new urban policies. And thank you, Representative Paulo Francis. And I invite the Deputy Special Assistant of Executive Secretary Carlos Fernandes, Daniela Silveira, that will talk on behalf of the Secretary Carlos Fernandes.
Boa tarde a todos.
afternoon, everyone.
É com imenso prazer que eu
It's an
agradeço,
enormous
deputada,
pleasure
pela
to be
presença,
here,
aos
the
vereadores que
presence
entraram
of the
online
representatives that
conosco.
were
Eu quero agradecer a
online
cada
with
que
us.
vieram
I thank
participar
everyone
conosco
that's
de forma
taking part,
presencial, a todos os
presentially or not.
internautas. Nós tivemos mais
And
de
we
800 acessos.
Everybody,
O
we
Zoom,
had
ele
more
teve
than
cheio
800
durante os 2 dias,
accesses.
com
The
150
2
pessoas lá
days,
que vão ser
150
certificadas
people
pela
there that
participação
will
na
receive the
conferência. Você que
certificate
participou
and
conosco
participation
presencial
in the
também vai
conference.
receber o seu
So we are
certificado.
going to receive
Então,
your
nós
certificate.
queremos
You're taking part.
agradecê-los.
We thank you.
Agradecê-los por
We
estarem
thank you for
engajados
being
na causa
engaged
ambiental da
in this
cidade de São Paulo,
environmental case
na questão
in São
ambiental
Paulo, in the
de onde
environment.
vivemos, não é verdade? E
The place
agradecer
we
a
live,
todos os
and we
painelistas que
thank
estiveram
all the
presentes,
panelists
as
that were here,
secretarias que
to the
enviaram,
secretariats that
enfim,
sent the representatives to
os seus
participate.
representantes.
And
Agradecer
we
também
thank
imensamente
immensely
a Secretaria de Relações
the
Internacionais,
International
a
Relations
secretária
Secretary Marta
ao secretário
Suplicy,
executivo Carlos Fernandes,
and
que
Carlos
não pôde
Fernandes,
estar
Executive
conosco,
Secretary, that's
que
not with
ajudou
us, but
na
helped.
verdade, ele foi o grande
And he
idealizador
was
disso
the
tudo
one
junto
that
conosco. Então, assim,
has prepared
quero
everything with
agradecer,
us.
deixar aqui os
I
mais sinceros
thank my
agradecimentos a
sincere,
todos vocês. E agora eu quero
from the
convidar
bottom of
vocês
my
para tomarem um
heart,
café
my
conosco.
sincere
Então,
thanks, and now we
encerramos por aqui a
invite
nossa
you
PreCop26.
to
Muito obrigada a
take
todos. Nossa chefe
a
de
break
gabinete
with
também
us,
está
have
ali.
some coffee,
Ana,
and
obrigada.
we thank
Enfim,
Anna
agradecer a
and
todos.
everybody
Muito
for the
obrigada.
participation. Thank you very much.